What if cheating had never once existed in the entire history of our species, purely because the human brain physically refused to allow it? Picture a caveman glancing at someone across the fire, and his own brain slaps up a message. Partner already selected. Every other person on Earth has roughly the sexual magnetism of a municipal parking officer writing you a ticket. Affairs simply never happen. Sounds like paradise? Well, it's not quite that simple. Because in this video, you'll see the part nobody expects. A staggering slice of human history. Its greatest wars. Its royal bloodlines. Its most legendary love stories. Only happened because somebody, somewhere, cheated. Take that away, and the past we know quietly comes apart at the seams. So let's pull the thread. How does it actually work? Simple. The second two people genuinely choose each other, both of them, the brain flips a switch and attraction to everyone else just powers down. Click. Locked. Think of it as a selective romantic face blindness, and it runs both ways. Once you're bonded, every other face on Earth goes flat, like the world's most famous celebrity reading you the airport baggage rules. And in reverse, you stop registering as an option to anyone else, like you're wandering around in an invisibility cloak stitched out of wedding ring, which conveniently makes bonded people almost impossible to bother. Great, lovely. Now watch this one little rule quietly wreck 10,000 years of human history. Start at the very beginning. With cheating off the table forever, paternity stops being a mystery. Dads basically never lie awake wondering if the kid is theirs, so they pour food, time, and protection into their own families. Nobody runs off with a newer, shinier cave person, because the newer cave person may as well be a rock. But here's the catch. If your partner is the only human alive who can switch your romance on, then losing them is a full-blown catastrophe. And you don't lose them to a rival, because rivals don't exist. You lose them to a mammoth, a cliff, or the tribe next door. So couples get guarded like priceless equipment, basically critical prehistoric infrastructure. A hunter finally staggers home after 6 months, and his wife isn't scanning him for another woman. She's just stunned he wasn't eaten, because statistically, that was the smart bet. And remember that word, paternity. It comes back to bite us later. Now watch what it does to our best stories. The Trojan War loses its whole spark. In the classic version, Paris steals Helen from her husband and launches 1,000 ships. In this world, Paris meets Helen, instantly clocks that she's already bonded, and the great doomed romance has the crackling energy of chatting with someone else's dentist. The face launches nothing. The ships stay parked in the harbor. Lancelot and Guinevere never fall into forbidden love either. They just hold painfully polite eye contact across the room, while King Arthur wonders why medieval literature suddenly got so much shorter. Humanity loses a mountain of tragic love stories and gains roughly 9,000 fewer scenes of two soaked adults screaming, "This wasn't supposed to happen," in a rainy car park. That's the fiction. The real history takes an even bigger beating. Take Henry VIII, a man whose entire personal brand was ending marriages. In real life, wanting to swap Catherine of Aragon for Anne Boleyn helped shove England into breaking with Rome, and by 1534, he'd crowned himself head of the English church. In our timeline, Henry can't feel a single flicker for Anne while he's still bonded to Catherine. That doesn't magically make him pleasant. He still badly wants a son, and he's still a man who treats disagreement as a problem you solve by deleting the person disagreeing. But Anne stops being the spark, so the break with Rome might land later, or differently, or under some completely different king. And here's the big one. Elizabeth I might never be born. Picture Henry summoning his advisors.
I require a new queen.
Are you attracted to literally anyone else, Your Majesty?
No.
Then I'm afraid this is just paperwork, sire.
And it doesn't stop at England. Roll this out across every royal court on Earth, and the entire backup air system collapses. Picture the Chinese imperial harem, hundreds of consorts whose whole job was guaranteeing the emperor produced a son from somebody, somehow. In this world, an emperor bonds to one empress and feels precisely nothing for anyone else. So the harem never makes sense in the first place. One wife, one shot at an heir. Sounds beautifully tidy, right up until the empress can't have children, and suddenly the most powerful man in the empire has no backup plan and no royal spares waiting in the wings. A dynasty can survive plagues, rebellions, and invasions, then quietly implode because two specific people are medically incompatible, which makes the royal doctor the single most terrified employee in the palace.
Wonderful news, Your Majesty. The borders are secure.
And the succession?
We were rather hoping you had a promising nephew.
But hidden inside all that royal panic is a genuinely lovely surprise. Emancipation shows up early. Once a king simply cannot manufacture a backup son on the side, the whole obsession with a male heir quietly falls apart, and daughters start inheriting thrones centuries ahead of schedule. Turns out the sky doesn't fall when a queen runs the place. It runs beautifully. Half of history's ugliest succession crises never even happen. But now we hit the scariest chart in the entire timeline, the birth rate. And this is where the cheerful version of this world quietly dies. Stable homes might raise more kids to adulthood, but almost everything else drags births straight down. People turn terrifyingly picky because one wrong bond can yank you out of the dating pool for years. Courtships crawl, weddings slide later, and fertile years tick away in the waiting room. There are no surprise babies from affairs topping up the numbers. If one partner is infertile, that's the whole story. No quiet backup, just adoption, or a very long, very sad wait. And every widow and widower sits biologically frozen for years, right through their best reproductive stretch. So governments start openly begging.
Please, marry, have children.
Can you guarantee we're compatible?
No.
Affordable housing?
Also no.
Then honestly, maybe the civilization had a good run.
Somewhere there's a national billboard reading, "Choose carefully, but please choose faster." War makes it even worse. A dead soldier doesn't just cost you one adult. He freezes his grieving spouse out of children for years on top. So armies start begging young couples not to marry until after the invasion. They ignore this completely because young couples have ignored sensible advice since roughly the invention of fire. Which brings us to the big one. What actually happens when a spouse dies? The lock finally releases, though nobody can predict when. Some people reset within weeks and feel horribly guilty about it. Others never reset at all and spend the rest of their lives alone, which is exactly why widowhood in this world can be quietly devastating. But the fast resetters crack open the one flaw in the whole system. Remember that word from earlier? Paternity? Here's the single exception in all of human history. A widow's husband dies. Her lock releases. She bonds with someone new inside a month, and then the doctor walks in with news. She was already pregnant before the funeral. Congratulations. This is now the only paternity mystery left on planet Earth, and two men are standing in a room doing very nervous arithmetic. So the one civilization that deleted cheating forever has to reinvent the paternity test purely for that 4-week window. A grieving widow, a dead husband, and one extremely confused baby. And it still comes with the worst argument imaginable.
Your husband died 2 months ago, and you already bonded with someone.
The lock switched off, Susan. I don't make the rules.
So humanity becomes perfectly loyal. Case closed? Not so fast. Being unable to cheat does absolutely nothing to stop a spouse being a total nightmare. You can be 100% faithful and still be a walking disaster. The kind who lies about money, gambles the rent, or eats crackers with tremendous crunch right beside a person trying to sleep. And the lock quietly traps people in these marriages because leaving means signing up for years with no attraction and no promise of ever bonding again. Divorce becomes both necessary and brutal. A whole industry springs up just to switch bonds off. Breakup coaches, reset clinics, and lawyers who have to prove in court that a relationship truly ended rather than got temporarily paused. One guy actually argues,
I wasn't cheating. My brain had already processed the divorce.
His wife replies,
You processed it. You forgot to tell me.
Politics gets cleaner and a whole lot more boring. The classic sex scandal basically goes extinct. Hamilton never gets tangled in the Reynolds affair. Britain's Profumo scandal never topples a soul. Careers survive. Comedy suffers. And the honey trap, spy fiction's favorite move, stops working overnight. The glamorous agent slips into the hotel room, and the bonded minister spends a solid 20 minutes enthusiastically explaining how much his wife would adore these curtains. His brain, meanwhile, is calmly flashing the same 3 words it has flashed since the Stone Age. Partner already selected. So agencies give up and start recruiting single people instead. The new security form just asks,
Marital status?
Married.
Perfect. Immune to seduction.
Not immune to bribery, though.
Nobody's perfect.
so what's the real verdict? A world without cheating would be steadier and a whole lot less dramatic. Cleaner family trees, no more paternity mysteries, and career-ending scandals that quietly never happen. But the bill always comes due. Birth rates sag, dynasties snap, widowhood turns devastating, bad marriages become inescapable, and choosing a partner becomes maybe the most dangerous decision a person will ever make. And remember that thread we pulled right at the start, the one holding history together? This is where it finishes unraveling, because a shocking amount of the human story, the wars, the crowns, the great romances, ran on exactly the messy, complicated wanting that this one rule quietly deletes. Humans wouldn't spend less time agonizing over love. They'd spend far more time deciding when to switch it on. Because once your attraction can only ever point at one single human being, romance stops being a game of temptation and becomes a lifelong bet you are absolutely not allowed to lose. So yes, cheating would be flat out impossible. Sadly, regret, divorce, infertility, terrible judgment, and dying first would all stay fully operational. Humanity would fix one relationship problem and instantly unlock about 12 new ones. Which leaves one last question hanging in the air. What if you could only ever fall in love once, and after that, there was no reset at all, ever again?